In this video, I want to touch on a very serious and very important topic, and that is how you can go about developing a client relationship that works for both of you. Because it doesn't matter whether you're doing business coaching or life coaching or whether you're doing sports coaching even. The relationship that you have with your client must be one that works for both of you. It must be mutually beneficial. It cannot be a one-sided exploitative relationship. And it's important to establish an effective coach-client relationship right from the very beginning. Right at the start, you have to get this up front. Because you see, many clients are going to have mixed feelings about hiring a coach. When you're coaching them, you're holding a mirror up to them, metaphorically, and they might not like what they see. And some may feel that you're going to be critical or judgmental. Now, that's something that you should never ever be, but unfortunately, that is how some clients are going to feel when they engage you for the first time, especially if it's their first experience of having a coach. So your first priority should be to put them at ease. You should explain the process, and that you should tell them that your job is to empower them so that they can achieve their aims and dreams that they have for their life or for their business. And you should reassure them that you're not going to be critical and you're not going to be judgmental. You're going to take them as they are. And sometimes you have to really get inside your client's head and figure out what they really want. Because sometimes clients' objectives are confused. Sometimes they don't have a clear objective in mind. Sometimes it's something vague like, I want to be successful. Well, how? In what? Do you want to be a successful business person? You want to be a successful husband or wife or father? Do you want to be a successful entrepreneur? Do you want to have, do you want to be a successful Formula One motor racing driver? You have to have something specific to be successful in. So they have to be very specific. And of course, some people don't like that. They just say, well, I want to be successful. Well, define success. Well, like my next door neighbor is. Well, how's he successful? Well, I don't know. So you do have to sometimes take the client by the hand and find out what he or she really wants. So defining what the client's objective is and how you can help them to achieve it should be your first job in establishing a coach-client relationship. And you also need to manage their expectations. You can't just simply wave a magic wand and solve all their problems, but that might be what they expect you to do. So you do have to perhaps sometimes make the client aware that you're not a miracle worker, you are just a coach. And if during your initial conversation it becomes clear that the client's expectations are unreasonable or that you're not going to be able to help them, then you need to walk away. Because it must be a win-win situation for you both. Because if they've got unrealistic expectations, if they expect you to wave a magic wand and solve all their problems, be it in business or be it in life, and you're not a miracle worker because nobody is, then you've got to impress that upon them, because otherwise they're going to be disappointed, and they may be bitterly disappointed and start bad-mouthing you all over the place, and that's not a good thing to happen. So if it's not a win-win situation for both of you, then it's time to pull the plug before you've even begun. You also want to set boundaries for the work that you're going to do with your client. Now, these can be boundaries of things like session times or the venue where you're going to hold the session. You should certainly get fees and payments out of the way. You want to make sure that they know exactly what you're going to charge and when you expect to be paid. You should have diary arrangements made, especially if you're going to do one-on-one coaching. And you should have a cancellation policy so that your client can't just simply change the date and then phone up at 5 minutes notice and say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't make it. So you want to make sure that everybody agrees as to what these things are going to be before you begin. And there are more things that you can add as well. You can also include things, particularly if you're doing business coaching, things like a confidentiality policy, ethical codes. You should work out what the contact with the client's line manager or business partners are going to be if you're doing business coaching. And you should also make it clear the work that the client should be doing in between sessions. It's not going to be just you that's doing the work. They're going to have to work towards their own goal themselves. You're just going to empower them to do that. And you need to make sure that all of the parties that are involved are aware of what everyone is expected to do and what they are not expected to do. And that's very important. And you need to have a clear memorandum of understanding. So it's all written down so that everybody knows exactly where they stand. And getting everything straight at the beginning is going to avoid having any misunderstandings later on. You should also build a personal rapport with your client. Your client needs to be able to trust you and believe in you. But don't be surprised if you're subjected to a covert testing process, especially in your early sessions. That, after all, if someone is hiring you who's never had a coach before or has perhaps had a bad experience with a coach, they're going to want to satisfy themselves that you're up to the job. So don't be surprised if they're they're covertly testing you a little bit as you go on. So you want to counter that by over-delivering on your promises. So you should promise less, but deliver more, so that you exceed their expectations and provide real value for money. Another thing you have to ask yourself is this going to be right for both of you? Now, you don't have to be friends with the client, but you do have to respect each other. And you need to deal with any differences promptly and directly. And this is particularly important when you're working with a team in a business. And in that context, you want to be aware of the pocket veto that perhaps some team members might wish to use. Now, a pocket veto is where someone says yes when you ask them to do something, they agree to do something, and then after they've gone away, they say, forget it, I'm not going to do it, or they just simply don't bother to do it. And so they've effectively vetoed what you've agreed with without there being any debate or any discussion. So you do need to be aware of that. Obviously, if you're working one-on-one with a particular client, with a single client, then if they agree to do something and then they don't, well, they're only letting themselves down. But if you've got a group of people and you've got one person who perhaps isn't convinced, they may well use the pocket veto and all your work is going to be for nothing. So you have to be aware of that. And to counter that, you need to gain commitment. Once everybody starts working together and the client can see results, this will build quickly. But in the early stages, and again, if you're working with a team, this is going to be difficult, but it's not impossible. And you need to make sure that everybody who's involved in the coaching process is committed to the outcome that you've agreed on. And then you need to get on with it. You need to deliver quantifiable results for the client within the agreed time frame. Because if the results are slowly coming, the client may conclude that it's all a waste of money and drop you, and you've lost a client, and it won't do your reputation in business any favors at all.